sunshine, sunshine, yeah. I can fall in love right here. I could be young right here. I can live it out like...
What is going on, everyone? My name is Ethan, and welcome to the Fandom Hub. 2020 may have been a terrible year, but it was a great year for music. About halfway through the year, I got the idea to start ranking all of the albums I've listened to from worst to best. A few things to get out of the way before we start. Obviously, I haven't been able to listen to every album, but I did listen to a lot of stuff that I normally wouldn't listen to, so I've compiled 70 albums for this list. Second, I honestly don't have too many albums on this list that were actually horrible, mainly because I chose music I was excited to hear and listen to, but a few of them did in fact disappoint. And lastly, I spent a lot of time and effort on this video, so I'd really appreciate a like and sub from anyone that enjoys content like this. Keep in mind that this entire list is my opinion, try to be civil about it, and let's just jump right into it. Number 70, Daystar, Tory Lanez. I don't really need to say much about this album, you guys already know why it's bad. I didn't even really mind Tory Lanez as an artist before this, but amid the current controversy, this project was really distasteful. He essentially clickbaited everyone into thinking this project would explain his side of the story, but he never even does that. He just continuously says he can't go into detail for legal reasons, then proceeds to flex and put out some unappealing and distasteful music for an hour and 6 minutes. Number 69, Spooky Sounds, Trippie Redd. Literally 7 minutes of Trippie Redd making spooky sounds, and I'd still rather listen to it than Daystar. Number 68, Pluto x Baby Pluto, Future and Uzi. I enjoy Uzi and I enjoy Future, so I expected to enjoy this. Unfortunately, this collaboration just failed to deliver on every front for me. It feels lazy, and was probably done in about a week or so. There's just hardly any energy, and the majority of the verses are just flat out disgusting, from Future especially. Overall, just a really big disappointment for me. Number 67, Tattletails, 6ix9ine. Look, I don't even dislike 6ix9ine, I actually thought his previous projects were pretty entertaining. But he dragged on that rat thing for so long when it was never really funny to begin with. By the time this album came out, it was like sitting through a 30-minute 2014 Vine compilation. Hardly any of the songs were even catchy or entertaining, and it all just felt so boring and uninspired. Definitely not something I'll ever listen to again. Number 66, Blame It on Baby, DaBaby. Honestly, something that I was really excited about. DaBaby is constantly criticized for having the same flow, but I've heard him come through with some exciting verses here and there, and he seems like he really tries to switch it up to avoid the criticism. But this album really failed to deliver for me. Sure, it has some good features, and has like 4 good songs, but it's so overloaded with throwaways that it's impossible for me to sit through the whole thing more than once. Kirk had a lot of the same issues, but I still think I liked it better. Number 65, Pegasus, Trippie Redd. Didn't really know what to expect here since Trippie has been kind of hit or miss for the past few years. A Love Letter to You 3 and Life's a Trip are still both great albums. Then ! Happened and I lost faith in him for a bit. He went on a bit of a redemption streak when he dropped A Love Letter to You 4, which wasn't amazing but definitely was an improvement. And then Pegasus. It had so many skips, man. I saved probably 7 or 8 songs, which would be pretty good in a 12-track album, but this project has 26 songs, and he even released a deluxe version where he added the spooky sounds to the track list. I don't agree with people who think Trippie is terrible, but projects like this sure don't help him out in any way. Number 64, Tickets to My Downfall, Machine Gun Kelly. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Machine Gun Kelly, but I forced myself to listen to this album. It is by no means good. Before you get mad, there's plenty of stuff that I listen to that I know isn't good, but I enjoy it. Can't help it. If you can enjoy some Machine Gun Kelly, more power to you. To be clear, I think this new MGK is a step up from whatever the hell his rapping career was, but not by much. Bloody Valentine was alright, and I saved the song with Black Bear, but other than that, it sounded very bland and cheaply produced. Number 63, Bosque IV Comethazine. I truly think Comethazine is a very unique artist with a lot of potential, but unfortunately this project just wasn't very well made. However, it was entertaining as hell to listen to. Number 62, Artist 2.0, A Boogie with a Hoodie. Had high expectations after Hoodie season. Unfortunately, this album was pretty disappointing aside from a few songs here and there. For me, A Boogie is an artist who works a lot better on songs with other artists. I can only listen to so much of his voice before I get sick of it. OD and Skeezers are some of the only solo songs of his that I enjoy. Everything else that I have saved from him features a great artist that complements his sound, and unfortunately there wasn't too much of that in Artist 2.0. Number 61, Anniversary, Bryson Tiller. This man was immediately doomed when he styled his album to appear to be a sequel to Trap Soul. This project would have to be crazy to live up to his 2015 project, and it just wasn't. The only song that really jumped out at me was the song with Drake, because, well, it's Drake. But yeah, I can say without a shadow of a doubt this album will be forgotten about in a few years' time, if it isn't already. Number 60, the Vaccine mixtape, Sprite. Sprite is an artist that I used to really enjoy, but I've been a little critical of the direction he's been going in since late 2019. I thought Beauty and a Nightmare was really good, but his following project, not so much. Sprite has always been an artist with a semi-unique sound, but the Vaccine mixtape just sounds like he draws clear inspiration from a different artist on each song. For example, Thief in the Night sounds like Travis, Backshot sounds like X, Inner Beast sounds like Don Toliver, and so on. I'm hoping we get an album that's less derivative from him in the future. Number 59, featuring Dolla Sign, Ty Dolla Sign. Ty Dolla Sign has always been a great feature artist. Try and think of a single popular Ty Dolla Sign song without at least one other artist on it. Exactly. This is why conceptually this should have been a fantastic album. It was absolutely littered with fantastic features. Unfortunately, it failed to deliver on just so many fronts. First of all, it's long as hell. Listening through 25 Ty Dolla Sign tracks in a row was pretty much just as painful as I thought it would be. Second, none of the songs really stood out too much or took off like you'd expect them to. It was really surprising. Overall, not a bad album, just pretty boring and disappointing. Number 58, Good Luck, Blade. I didn't really get a chance to listen to 333 or Extra this year, but I did check out Good Luck, which was pretty underwhelming but had some decent songs, that of which basically was just Rainbow and God. It was short and didn't really leave me feeling any type of way afterwards, which is why it's ranked so low. Number 57, Slime and B, Young Thug and Chris Brown. I had a hard time ranking this album. On one hand, I loved the chemistry they had between the majority of these songs, but most of them failed to do anything interesting for me. Go Crazy and Animal were definitely the highlights for me, the worst track being She Bumped Her Head by far. I don't know why they ever decided to release that thinking someone out there is gonna love this one. I also hate supporting Chris Brown because of who he is as a person, but his voice is just so damn unique. Tory Lanez is a little bit easier because he was never that great of an artist to begin with, but Chris Brown has always given me that weird feeling when I try to vibe to his music. That's why this one is ranked a little bit lower. Number 56, F Love, The Kid Laroi. I saw a lot of people absolutely despising this one when it first came out, and now I'm seeing people call it Album of the Year. I don't even dislike Laroi, but I did not enjoy this album very much. Obviously, songs like Go and Tell Me Why are great, but the rest of the album just kind of fails to do anything different, and I have a hard time distinguishing most of the songs from each other. The skits also are not a good touch, and gives the album a really cheap feeling that makes it very forgettable for me. Hoping Laroi will take more time on his projects in the future. Number 55, Insomnia Dreams, Namson. If you guys don't know Namson, you might remember him as Rubsy, who I bullied into retirement with the infamous Rubsy diss track. All jokes aside, he begun a rap career a few years ago, and this project is a huge step up from his first one. I love the concepts and the production, and it was honestly really impressive. However, it's a little bit difficult to compare this project to the ones that have hundreds of people working on them from professional studios. There's a few songs on here that I really dislike, You a Simp being one of those, but there's also things like Insomnia Dreams and Scarface. I really love the fact that there was a good concept and he was able to convey his emotions and what he was going through personally on a project, which only makes me more excited for what he does in the future. So, all bias aside, not one of my favorite albums from this year, but it has a good amount of standout tracks and I'm excited to see more from him in the future. Number 54, Evermore, Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's second studio album this year, and I was pretty underwhelmed by it. It wasn't nearly as well-rounded as Folklore, and let me get this out of the way. I had really high expectations for the Bon Iver feature at the end. Unfortunately, that didn't deliver either. I did really like No Body, No Crime, which gave me more of a throwback to the Taylor Swift I enjoy. To be clear, I haven't been the biggest fan of the majority of this pop Taylor, and I don't think she's been very good since 2012. This year I saw her go back to her roots in quite a few different ways, and I kinda liked it. Regardless, this project just didn't blow me away, to say the least. Number 53, Music to Be Murdered by Eminem. Not a good album by any means, but definitely a step up from Revival and Kamikaze. See, Eminem does this really annoying thing where he bodies a track and then ruins it with one line, which happens on pretty much almost every song on here. And I honestly think he does it on purpose at this point. I love the kind of old Hitchcock slasher horror vibe of the album, but it ultimately fails to deliver that theme throughout 90% of the tracks, which was really disappointing. Number 52, No Future, Eden. Eden has always been one of my favorite artists. His 2016 project, I Think You Think Too Much of Me, is my favorite album of all time, and his subsequent 2018 project, Vertigo, is one that's grown on me every day since it's released. No Future was ultimately a bit disappointing, since most of the standout tracks were ones that had previously released as singles. The album itself is really good, but there's not a lot of songs that are very catchy or memorable. Nothing really sticks out no matter how many times I listen to it. FOMO, Projector, and ... keep this album high enough on the list for it to be considered mid-tier, but I definitely think it's the one with the most throwaway tracks mixed in. Number 51, While the World Was Burning, St. John. Great features saved this one. St. John's vocals started to get a bit boring after a while, but every once in a while a good track would come in and make me forget I was bored. Not much to say about this one except I remember enjoying it a good amount. Number 50, Music to Be Murdered By Side B, Eminem. This was what Side A should have been. I think for the most part he really took the criticisms people had with Side A, and I'm grateful for that. On one hand, the features aren't nearly as good, but I'm able to overlook that due to songs like Nat, Discombobulated, and Alfred's Theme giving me Eminem music that I honestly could have seen on Marshall Mathers LP 2, which is the project that introduced me to rap back in 2012. For that reason, I think it deserves a place above Side A on my list. However, he has some truly awful bars and vocals as usual, which is enough to keep it down at number 50. Number 49, That's What They All Say, Jack Harlow. A very solid debut album from Jack Harlow, proving that he has some impressive capability. This project sounds like something they'd play at a club in Ohio, and you know what, I wouldn't even mind. There are a few skips on here for me, and after a 42-minute runtime, I'll admit that I was getting a little sick of it, especially when the remix of What's Poppin' ended up closing off the album. I hate when artists do this. Overall, impressive, but just lands somewhat in the middle for me this year. Number 48, Nicotine, Trevor Daniel. I had this album up a lot higher earlier in 2020, but as I've been keeping up with this list, I just keep finding myself moving it lower and lower. Lovesick, OMG, and especially Past Life were all fantastic, but the project was pretty damn short and nothing else really stood out. I hate that he put Falling on this project because I really don't think it matched the tone, and it seemed like he just needed a song to beef up the track list. I also don't care much for the cover art, and let me tell you, cover art does matter. You can't tell me otherwise. But yeah, an underrated artist for sure. Not the greatest project, but he does have some really good songs on it. Number 47, I'm Gone, Ian Dor. Another short project that Number 47, I'm Gone, Ian Dor. Another short project that I honestly forgot even came out this year until I re-listened to it last week. It's pretty solid, and I'll get hate for this, I'm aware, but I really enjoy a lot of Ian's music. I recognize it isn't good quality music, but I usually get excited whenever he drops. It's what I like to call Taco Bell music. It's cheap, it's not much, but it's good to have every once in a while. This project is probably his weakest, but there's some good tracks in here. Number 46, Grim Peaks 2, Lil Revive. You're about to see a nice little pattern here. Good, but too short. Lil Revive is Josh A's alter ego, in which he makes music that he sounds like he just has a lot of fun with. These projects are never long, so Josh has never really been known for that, but it's hard to compare 15-minute albums to the ones that are well over an hour long. But sometimes more tracks just means more enjoyment. Regardless, I love Dead by Daylight for how catchy it was, and Skeleton Avenue for the hypnotic beat and the peek into Josh's mental state, which was just really unique for him to do on this alter ego. The cover art as well adds a lot to Josh's projects, and it didn't disappoint on this tape either. Number 45, My Turn, Lil Baby. Okay, so to be fair, I was expecting pure garbage going into this one. I have not been a fan of Baby's music in the past. However, I was pleasantly surprised with the impressive flows and unique vocal performances throughout this record. Baby also seems to choose some great features that he works with really well. Heatin' Up and Commercial are for sure my favorite on this project. I just wish he had spent more time rooting out the throwaways because there are quite a few. Enough to hold this project back from being anything special for me. Number 44, Love vs. the World 2, Lil Uzi Vert. If you're counting this as the deluxe, obviously it would be better. You're getting both albums in one. For the sake of ranking this, I'm counting both of these as separate projects. I originally had this project above Eternal Take, but upon re-listening, this one had more skips for me. Number 43, Dark Lane Demo Tapes, Drake. Pretty solid album with a good amount of hits such as Chicago Freestyle, D4L, and Desires, but a good amount of bland skippable tracks that don't have a lot of character. Number 42, High Off Life, Future. Same issues as the Dark Lane demo tapes for me, but just a tiny bit more enjoyable. Highlights were definitely Life is Good, Solitaires, Riding Strikers, and Touch the Sky. My only big issue is that it was far too long and it was overpopulated with throwaways. Number 41, Eternal Take, Lil Uzi Vert. Quite a bit better than the deluxe version, but it had some skippable tracks for me as well. I think that when comparing this to many of Uzi's past albums, it's not even close to his best work, which is why it lands a bit lower on this list. Number 40, Beautiful Havoc, Snot. Snot has been on a roll this year with these projects, and this one was my least favorite of the two, but still very impressed. Once again, he does a great job at having a unique, melodic sound. Number 39, The Ascension, Sufjan Stevens. This is my first project that I've listened to by Stevens, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was an incredibly calming project that would be great to relax to. Only issue is there wasn't a ton of songs that stood out to me, but it's definitely an album worth checking out. Number 38, You're Not Alone, Josh A. The most recent project from Josh A, which provided some of the best production and songwriting I've ever seen from him. Despite it not being my favorite project from him, it really provided a lot of insight into his mind, and he really opened up in a way that he hasn't done much in the past. and for that reason, it skyrocketed to number 38. Number 37, Folklore, Taylor Swift. The first 2020 project from Taylor, which was definitely the strongest, for the sole reason that Exile and August exist. I'm bumping it up to 37. Otherwise, it wouldn't be nearly as strong. Number 36, Whole Lotta Red, Playboi Carti. Quite a diverse album that I actually really enjoyed. I think this is one of those projects that's going to age incredibly well and even make waves in the future. I would even go as far as to say it's more solid than Die Lit. However, this album could have been a lot stronger and it didn't quite live up to the hype, the same way I don't feel like Eternal Take did. Number 35, 10 and 2, Monsoon Season. This is actually an incredibly short project at just 4 tracks, but it's easily some of the best music I've heard all year. It's actually a band that's led by my old high school teacher, which is the only reason I know it exists. But I'd love to put you guys onto some actual quality music if you'd like to check this one out. Only reason it's this low is because how short it is compared to the rest. Number 34, Detroit 2, Big Sean. A pretty solid album that's easily the best music Big Sean has put out since I Decided. Very impressive with great features as well. Number 33, 1999, Rich Brian. A short but sweet album where Brian explores a new sound that I feel really fits him and shows how much he's progressing as an artist. DOA and Love in My Pocket were my standout tracks. Number 32, Dreamland, Glass Animals. Originally had this a lot higher, but its clear audience is essentially TikTok kids. That aside, there are some really great tracks on here. Upon multiple listens, there are some really annoying lyrics that ruin a good amount of the songs, but sonically it's a very well-made album. Number 31, Tragedy, Snot. Snot came through with his first studio album this year, and it kind of blew me away. I wasn't expecting much, but I got a lot of catchy melodies paired with surprisingly great production. Number 30, Jackboyz. A lot of people dislike this little album, and I will say it was way too hyped up for how short it was. There was a lot more potential for it for what we got, but there's really no misses, so I can't complain. I'm only more excited for what projects we can see from them in the future. Number 29, Run the Jewels 4, Run the Jewels. This one is going to be controversial, but I didn't enjoy this nearly as much as most people did. It's one of those albums where I can recognize how well made it is, but it just doesn't do anything special for me. I saved the majority of the tracks, but nothing has compelled me to re-listen to it since. Number 28, F the World, Brent Faiyaz. Easily some of the best R&B to come out this year. There's basically no misses on this project. If it was only a little longer, I think it would have been revolutionary. However, it's definitely some of the best music he's put out. Number 27, Autumn Gloom, Jake Hill. You probably haven't heard of this album, but just go listen to it. It released January 2020, so I almost forgot about it, but upon re-listening to it in the fall, that's when it really hit me. Coming from a longtime fan, probably my favorite project from Jake to this day. Number 26, Everything, Coda the Friend. If you watched the intro, you've already heard part of this album. One of the most relaxing summertime in California projects I've heard all year. I almost didn't check this one out, but I saw it getting a lot of praise, and it certainly deserved it. Number 25, The GOAT, Polo G. Probably one of the most exciting up-and-coming artists of the past 2 years. The only reason this project isn't higher is because I think the beats are pretty cheaply produced and they get a little bit old by the end of the project's runtime. On the other hand, a lot of people think these cheaply produced beats complement his sound and allow his incredible lyricism to stand out, which I can completely understand. So ultimately, just a really solid album that deserves a lot of praise. Number 24, Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial, Roddy Rich. Easily Roddy's best project to this day, and it's got so many solid tracks and features. I don't hold this project up as high as some other people seem to, but it was still a great experience and deserves a high place on this list. Number 23, Heaven or Hell, Don Toliver. An album that honestly feels very similar to Roddy's, but has a completely different mood as well. Don Toliver has been another artist that I've been eager to see drop more music ever since his feature on Astroworld. This album did not disappoint, it's super listenable and has great production. Number 22, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, Pop Smoke. This project was an example of a great posthumous project that didn't feel unfinished in the slightest. Pop Smoke had such a unique sound that was compelling and, well, emotional when he needed to be. Had he still been alive to see the release of this project, I think it would have been a crazy stepping stone for him, which in a way it still kind of was. I didn't get a chance to fully listen to Meet the Woo 2, but this project was definitely my favorite from him thus far. My standout tracks being Got It On Me, What You Know About Love, and Hotel Lobby. Number 21, Alfredo, Freddy Gibbs. Another album that's held in a very high regard, but just didn't leave me blown away like I thought it would. This is the first project I've heard by Freddy Gibbs, and it was hyped up like crazy, so I guess I had huge expectations. It's clear that this album wasn't made for me, but I've listened to it quite a few times and I still can't see myself ranking it any lower. It's extremely well made and impressive, my favorite tracks being 1985 and God is Perfect. Number 20, Unlocked, Denzel Curry. Another short project, but one I love all the same. Very re-listenable, and Kenny Beats did a fantastic job as well. There's no skips on here for me, and I feel like if it was a little bit longer, I'd be able to bump it up a little bit higher. But at the same time, I feel like if it was longer, that would defeat the whole purpose of what Denzel was going for, so I'm content with what we got. Number 19, Savage Mode 2. This was definitely one of the best albums this year, and I definitely think you could make the argument for any of these ranked this high, but I think there's just 18 albums I loved a bit more. Regardless, Metro Boomin never disappoints, and 21 Savage continues to be one of the best rappers in the game, which makes for a dark and entertaining project. Number 18, Plastic Hearts, Miley Cyrus. I'm not a huge fan of Miley Cyrus in the slightest, so this project kinda blew me away. I really think she's found a sound that works for her, and I'd argue that she's put out some of the worst music of the decade prior to this, but a rock album really suits her. Sure, there's a few misses on here, but Edge of Midnight is incredible, and the same can be said for a number of songs on here, so yes, I'd definitely recommend checking this one out. Number 17, How I'm Feeling Now, Charlie XCX. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of hyperpop, but when Charlie does it, it just feels like it was made for me. There's basically no misses on here, and although it's not quite as solid as her last project, it's still just as enjoyable to listen to. My standout tracks being Forever and Claws. Number 16, The Slow Rush, Tame Impala. This year was a good year to get into Tame Impala. Shortly after I started truly appreciating Currents, The Slow Rush dropped. Now, I would argue it's not nearly as good as Currents, but it was still super entertaining and I saved pretty much every song. I think this is an album that will age quite well and people will begin to appreciate his existence more and more as time goes on. Number 15, 31520, Childish Gambino. I didn't particularly like this one at all when it first dropped, but it's grown on me quite a bit over this past year, to the point where I think it's probably some of Gambino's best work. Now, do I think it's better than Awaken My Love or Because the Internet? No, not at all, but I think it would be better received with some good album art, marketing, and hell, even some song titles. Number 14, Limbo, Amine. Now, this is my favorite Amine project so far, and that was something that really blew me away, despite me being a big fan of Amine the past few years. I wasn't a huge fan of his past project, but this one was really impressive. I definitely recommend checking it out. Number 13, Legends Never Die, Juice WRLD. Never really stood the hate from anyone on this project. It's definitely some of the best posthumous music we've gotten in the past few years. From the album art to the song selection to the features, everything for the most part seemed to be handled really well. The only reason it's a little bit lower than some of the others is because I really feel like Marshmello ruined the vibe of the album with a few of the songs, that aren't necessarily bad, but they don't fit the whole angelic, heavenly vibe that they were going for on this project. Regardless, I also have great memories attached to this album and Juice in general, so of course I'm going to be a little bit biased. Number 12, Man on the Moon 3, Kid Cudi. What an incredible project. Kid Cudi has not disappointed in the past few years. Forget Speeding Bullet to Heaven. This project works as a great conclusion to the Man on the Moon trilogy, and it's honestly my favorite project from Cudi since the first Man on the Moon. And I think it goes without saying, but shout out Sam Spratt for the amazing cover art as well. Number 11, Sawayama, Rina Sawayama. This project was not on my radar until a friend of mine shared a lot of love for it on his socials, and I thought, because I was doing this video, I might as well check it out. And I was blown away. The production was insane for such a small artist. Rina also does a great job mixing pop and metal into this fusion that I would have never expected to work. Her voice as well is super unique and enjoyable. Just go listen to this project if you haven't already. Standout tracks for me were XS, STFU, and Tokyo Love Hotel. Number 10, No Pressure, Logic. Logic has been on a bit of a cold streak, I'd argue since 2018, but No Pressure really exceeded my expectations. He managed to go back to his roots and at the same time give us something new and interesting. It was only fitting for this project to be the conclusion to his rapping career, being the sequel to his debut album. I think it was super well made and sounds like something he really took his time with. Also, shout out Sam Spratt once again. Number 9, What's Your Pleasure, Jessie Ware. Another project not on my radar whatsoever until I listened to Spotlight, which gave me these retro 70s vibes that immediately interested me. I went ahead and listened to this project a few weeks ago and it's absolutely incredible. There's no misses, every song sounds unique, and it has some high quality 70s nostalgia that I was hoping for. Number 8, Nectar Jojo. I was pretty disappointed initially to find out that the next Jojo project wouldn't be a sequel to Ballads 1, but Nectar did anything but disappoint. We got 18 tracks of non-stop hits from Jojo on this project, and I loved it more and more every day since it's released. My favorite tracks are Afterthought, You, Sanctuary, and Run, but I saved every single one. Number 7, Modus Vivendi, 070 Shake. Not quite sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but we move. What an incredible experience. I originally heard her infamous verse on Ghost Town with Kanye, and I thought, I want more songs like this. Luckily for me, there was an entire album packed with songs just like it, and some even better. Definitely go give this one a listen. Also, Sam Spratt did the cover art as well, which is probably my favorite art he's ever done. Number 6, Circles, Mac Miller. Hands down one of the most perfectly handled posthumous projects, and it's from Mac Miller. It feels like a sequel to Swimming, which is all I could ever ask for. Swimming being my favorite project from Mac, so I obviously didn't like this one quite as much, but damn is it good. I can recall when Good News first released as a single, and I couldn't stop listening to it for weeks. Everything else on this album is handled just as well and has that same level of replayability. Number 5, Future Nostalgia, Dua Lipa. I can't recall why, but I refused to listen to this project for the longest time. I think Dua Lipa did something stupid on Twitter and I just decided her music probably sucks too. I don't know, but man was I wrong. Future Nostalgia is a seamless blend of modernized pop music and 80s pop music that just makes for nearly every track sounding amazing and being just as catchy and memorable. Unfortunately, what holds this one back a little bit for me is the track Boys Will Be Boys, which isn't quite as catchy as the rest, but also just comes across as blatantly sexist and obnoxious. Luckily, literally every other song on here is phenomenal, so I'm able to still place it at number 5. Number 4, Razzmatazz, I don't know how, but they found me. This is a nice little alternative indie album that I didn't quite expect to love as much as I did. But man, is it back to back to back to back hits. It's easily their best collection of music they've put out. 100% go listen to this immediately. My standout tracks have to be Kiss Goodnight, Cluster Hug, and Leave Me Alone. Number 3, Punisher, Phoebe Bridgers. These top 3 were really difficult for me. Depending on the day, they could honestly be in any order. Punisher is one of those projects that I don't think gets nearly enough love as it deserves. Upon my first listen, I'll admit I wasn't too impressed, but every single day since it's come out, I've just grown more and more and more attached to this project and Phoebe as an artist. Listen to this album in order, by the way. It's come to my attention that some people don't. The ending track just hits that much harder when you do. Standout tracks for me are definitely Punisher, Kyoto, This Is the End, and Savior Complex. Number 2, The New Abnormal, The Strokes. Not even the biggest Strokes fan before I checked this one out, but holy hell, this album just goes 9 for 9. I mean, despite it being only 9 tracks, it's still nearly 50 minutes long, so I wouldn't really call it short. It's honestly the perfect length and has some outstanding cover art as well. Standout tracks on this one are Bad Decisions, Brooklyn Bridge to the Chorus, and Parents Are Talking. But all the songs are great, to be honest. If you're into alternative rock, give it a listen. Number 1, After Hours, The Weeknd. I don't really think I could ever not have given this album number 1. The Weeknd is my favorite artist and he refuses to make a bad song on this record. Every track has this insane level of production that's paired with a voice that could really only be compared to something otherworldly. Still don't understand how anyone could dislike this album. I get it if it's not your number 1, but it's objectively a great project. My standout tracks are Alone Again, Too Late, Hardest to Love, Scared to Live, Snow Child, Escape from LA, Heartless, Faith, Blinding Lights, In Your Eyes, Save Your Tears, After Hours, and Until I Bleed Out. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the video for today. It was a long one. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry that it ended up getting it out to you guys so late. I've been going through a rough breakup at the time of recording and editing, so my motivation to do things hasn't really been the same. Make sure you guys leave a like if you enjoyed. Let me know if you'd like to see me rank the tracks of any of these projects in the future. And it's been Ethan. Take care, stay safe, and have a good day. Peace.
Bill collector knocking at the door. Baby mama yelling in my ear. Honestly, a lot is going on. Only thing is I don't really care. People